This is Josh Burkman back here in the program. Nice looking beard going on right there. Are you going to trim it at all for the fight, or is it you're going to let it grow until after?
Uh, I mean, I'm gonna let it grow unless they make me trim it. A couple people said, "Hey, I think they might make you trim that," but
I
I
don't.
started growing in April. I said I was gonna grow it for a year this time, so
Oh, good.
hopefully I don't have to touch it and I can let it go.
There. I don't know if there's. I got to look. That's something I don't know. I don't know if there's a rule or not that says that you
Right.
have
Only
to
thing
have.
I've heard is I heard they made a couple guys cut them in Canada, but I haven't heard anywhere else. And there's some beards that have been a little gnarlier than
Yeah.
mine, so I don't think they'll make me cut it.
And yours is in Texas, so I kind of get
Yeah,
the feeling they'll let you
Texas. So
go.
if
Yeah,
they make
they're
me
like,
cut it, something's wrong.
yeah, they're like whatever, it's fine as long as you're not bringing an accent with him. He's okay. No. We got to talk about it because the big elephant in the room. You're on a
Yeah, yeah,
four fight losing streak.
right.
This is
Yeah.
not. This is not good.
No, I mean I'm lucky to even to be fighting, and to get this opportunity. My fight when I went to Brazil, I fought. I think I'd lost one fight there, and I fought Prazeres, who was on a 3-fight win streak.
Yeah.
And when Joe Silva called me, he said, "Hey, nobody wants to go fight Prazeres in Brazil. You want the fight?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." And I thought this this last fight with who did I fight? Drew
Dober.
Dober. I thought that was an easy fight for me. Not easy, but I mean, I thought I should have. I was going to go in there and whip him, and I felt great. But then as soon as I make that cut to 55 again, I was like, man, no, I'm done at 55.
Yeah.
And I feel like I tried to make that move to 155 pounds. And I feel like I felt good in training camp and being lighter. But as soon as I went from trying to make that cut from 170 pounds to 155 pounds, it took it out of me. I mean, I had 45 fights and had never been, knocked
Yeah.
out. And then I go and Prazeres touches me on the side of the head, and I get a little out of it. And then the same with Drew Dober. Drew Dober puts me flat on my back, and I think that has a big deal with to do with the weight cut, and then what that weight cut does, because I have a herniated disc in my C5, C6, and
Hmm.
I think that huge dehydration just makes me real weak, and so. I'm lucky to even be here, and the conversation me and Dana White had is, when they brought me back, I fought, what's his name? Uh, I don't
Lombard, Hector
know.
Lombard.
Hector Lombard. There you
Yeah.
go. And nobody wanted to fight him. And Dana called me, and I said, "Yeah, I'll fight him." And the same thing with nobody wanted to go fight Patrick Cote in Canada. And Joe
Yeah.
Silva called me, and I said, "I'll fight him in Canada." Nobody wanted to fight Prazeres in Brazil. And I went and fought Prazeres in Brazil. And Dana said to me, after my fight with Paul Felder,
Hmm.
he called me out, and I went and sat next to him. He said, "I just want you to know, you might not be winning." He's like, "I thought you won this fight against Paul Felder." He's like, "It was close." He said, "But you might not be the best guy in this organization, but you're absolutely one of the toughest. I appreciate you taking the fights that you take, and I'm never going to cut a guy like you." And so I had 5 fights, and it's been a bad road. And I tried 55, and I've taken chances, and not it all hasn't come out on the winning side. But I'm still here. I got a chip in the chair. I'm back at 170, and I'm going into this fight with the same attitude I have every fight. I'm going, and I think I can win it. And I'm excited that I don't have that big weight cut. If whether this is my last fight or whether it's not, I'm glad I get to just go into the fight and not have the weight cut be the hardest part about what I'm doing.
That's one of the things now that I'm trying to help as much as I can with the weight cutting issues that are going on
Yeah,
within our
yeah,
sport. When I was competing, I was like, leave us alone. We signed up for it. We know what we're getting into. If it's our fault if we
right,
can't get rehydrated, it's our fault if we get knocked out. Like I'm that typical
absolutely,
fighter. But now I'm looking at fighter safety and I'm taking a real good, long, hard look at it and seeing my friends that have cut a lot of weight coming out. And some are really punch drunk and
right,
some guys we all know that were in the sport for a very long time and super big heroes are having really hard times now kind of functioning in normal society because
yeah,
they have got hit in the head so much. And part of it was weight cutting. Part of it
yeah,
was their style where they just kept their hands down and took five
right,
to give you two kind of deal. But a lot of factors go into it. But one of the factors and the biggest one that we can control, at least as officials and inspectors and what have you, is that we're able to kind of control the weight cutting issue. And that really is absolutely what you said. You have those two herniated discs. There's no fluid in your system, even though you put
Right.
fluid back into it. There's not enough in there. A little small love tap that normally you're just like, whatever, I'm good.
Yeah,
Put you out, and that's a difficult place to be in. Going, hey, I'm taking a risk on my career. I'm gonna try and get some of these wins back. I'm gonna cut a bunch another 15 pounds and make this thing happen. And
right.
you're like, that was the dumbest mistake I ever made. Like I should never have done that. So it's
Yeah, I
like,
mean, and unfortunately for me, I've learned the hard way in a lot of ways,
yeah,
right? But when we deplete ourselves like we're depleting ourselves, there's one thing about depleting some water weight. But
mm-hmm.
when you get to that level of dehydration, your spine starts to get dehydrated, and you start to pull. Extreme dehydration creates dehydration in the brain, and you
Yeah.
can get scars in the brain
Mm-hmm.
when you get that dehydrated. And then if you get that dehydrated and you go get hit in the head, right, and you get a concussion or something, the scars or the trauma to the brain can be that much worse. And
Yeah.
I went and got an MRI, and I talked to the doctor for a while, and he said to me, he said, "Good news and bad news." And I said, "Give me the bad news and then the good news." He goes, "You have a scar in your brain, and
Okay.
this is what happens." He's like, "It's either from trauma, or it's from severe dehydration." And he goes, "You want the good news though?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Most guys that are 40 years old have four of them. You have one."
Oh
You
wow.
know.
Okay.
So and then we talked about how that happens and why that happens, and that was before my last fight. And it's just we don't we want to compete and we want to be
Mm-hmm.
win and we want to be as good as we can possibly be, but if you start cutting, you're already in good shape, and you
Mm-hmm.
start cutting past 15 pounds, you're really hurting yourself, and I
Well,
think that
let's put a caveat in there. Cutting 15 pounds is a lot different when you're a 125 pounder.
there you
A
go.
115-pound female trying to cut 15 pounds, at the ladies division, versus a guy that's 205
Yeah, yeah,
trying to cut 15 pounds. So there is
absolutely.
a, but you're right. I agree with you. That 15-pound
Right.
window is the number that I use all the time too. Like, look, if you're
Is it?
cutting more than that, you're in big trouble. Like I don't care
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
say. I don't care what you do. You may come out there and win. You may come out there and knock the guy out in 35 seconds, but you are
Right.
not in your peak performance. You are not able to be the best athlete that you could be on that night if you've lost
Right.
that much water weight, no matter how
And
much
after
time
you
you
go,
have to recuperate.
it took me a couple weeks, I mean, to feel normal after the
Yeah.
Dober fight, after the other fight, and I just feel like, too, not just the weight cut, right, but like giving some just respect back to the weight classes,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think that if we came in and we said, "Hey, you can't come in over 10 pounds above the weight class,"
Mm-hmm.
and when you weigh in after, you can't weigh in back over 15 pounds of the weight class. Like that gives respect back into the weight classes, and then also protects the fighters. And I think that there should be some regulations that are strictly enforced moving forward. I see, I've been in the wrestling rooms, and the way that these
Mm-hmm.
high schools and colleges are doing the weight cuts in wrestling is, I think, intelligent, and I think MMA needs to follow suit.
And they did that because there was three deaths all of a sudden at the
Right.
college level. Three guys were using a bunch of creatine, weren't using it properly, were cutting a bunch of weight. Like one guy cut 22 pounds or 23 pounds in a night to make weight for like that morning he gets up. He doesn't think he's wrestling. They call him up and go, hey, look, the starter is out. You're starting. You got to make weight tonight at 4 o'clock. He's like, I'm 22 over. Like, you just got to figure it out. And he lost 22 pounds. He makes weight and then, ends up passing away. So they made a
Right.
lot of changes in wrestling, and one of them is they went to the hour weigh-in. You weigh in, they put all the weight classes in a hat, they reach in, they pull that weight class out. That's the starting weight class. So sometimes you're the last match of the night, and sometimes you're the first match of the night. You never know where you're going to
Right.
be in the middle of the lineup, and then of course tournaments start in order because that's the way tournaments have to go. But it's a crazy kind of situation for these guys, and for a long time, a lot of guys bitched and complained about it and moaned about it. But it's just the rule, so you have to
Right.
follow it. You have to do it. The one thing I can say in California, and that's because that's where I'm licensed to referee and judge. That's how I know what California does. I'm sure there's some other states that do it as well, but California weighs you in day of the weigh-in. You make your
Yeah.
weight. Then when you walk into the arena the next day, as you walk in, immediately you have to get undressed, and you got to weigh in
Right.
again. If you're 10% of your body weight plus 1 pound, that fight that night goes on as is. Don't worry about the
Right.
fight that night, but you're not going at this weight class again. You
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
you got to prove that you can come down here, and what it does is it forces the doctors now to get
To
into
get
it. Like
involved.
you got to get, can you imagine? Yeah, it's your buddy. I'm sure you've been in Utah a long time. Your
Yeah.
doctor's your buddy. You can get your doctor buddy to go ahead and do and say whatever you need to get yourself cleared. For the most part, he's not going to put you out there for death, but he's going to,
Right.
oh yeah, go ahead. The weight class is fine.
Yeah,
But
you
there's a
tell him you're good, he believes you.
oh yeah, for sure.
Right?
But
Yeah.
now they're putting it back on the doctors. My understanding is they're putting it back on the doctors. Like, hey, look, you cleared this guy. Something happens to him now that you cleared him to fight this weight class. You're also in trouble. Not just the fighter if something goes wrong, but you're in trouble too. The doctor's like, okay, hey Josh, you and I are best friends. We went to high school together, man. I've known you forever, but 155 is not your weight class, and you go 170. That's just what's
Right.
going to happen. You're like, okay, all right. So it has put some quality back into the weight class a little bit, and really that real old martial arts style of. Not, I don't want to say, I'm going to say that this term that everybody talks about, but it's not true. Fighting it with the weight you weigh at, which is not
Right.
true because we're always heavier before training camp starts. We always lose weight
For
during
sure.
training camp, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the easiest way to explain it. And I got to say, man, you looked better. Wins or losses, take them out. Don't look at that. Just look at the performance. You look better at 170. You're quicker. You're better. You're faster. You're stronger. You
Yeah.
recover quicker from heavy hits and heavy takedowns. But it doesn't happen at 55. At 55, you're might be lighter, stronger, and bigger than everybody
Right.
else, but you have no wherewithal. You have no ability to be able to stand
Right.
through that
And that's
headache.
that's like one of the questions that I was talking to one of my buddies about, and he was like, "Where do you feel the best?" He's like, "Because you can't possibly feel the best at 155 pounds." And I was like, "No." And a lot of that, I think, again, the competitive edge. How can I compete against these 55ers? Because in the wrestling room, there's not many 55ers that I had any problem with, right? But
Right.
once you make that drastic weight cut, it was a big deal. And for me, I'm today marks 15 years I've been fighting professionally.
Wow.
I've had 47 fights. I've been through just about everything in this
Yeah.
sport, as highs and lows. And, as I'm going to fight, 4 more times and I'm done,
Oh, okay.
and I want to fight twice a year and I'll be 40 and I'm going to walk away, and I'm already planning what I'm doing next. I'm
Right.
already into and for me, I'm just grateful I get to go back in there and but like I said, I feel good. I'm excited. I don't have that big weight cut. And for
Yeah.
me, I was eating a couple eggs, and I might get a little bit of a salad or something for dinner, and I was on bulletproof coffee all day long, and I
Oh,
got some
wow.
of that from Paul
Yeah.
Felder, just to make 155 pounds. And I look back now and I'm like, why did I do it like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and guys, I'm not the tallest guy, but I mean, I have this old football player build where I can be 200 pounds in a
Mm-hmm.
week. I have big legs and a big ass,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm heavy set. So, I look at it like, make sure look at where you're going to peak the best at, where your performance is going to be the best at, and I went down to the UFC, the Performance Institute,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and they went, and I was probably 6 weeks out from my fight with Drew Dober. And I sat down with a nutritionist and they're like, you should be doing a protein shake here. You should be doing this here. You should be doing this here. This is what I was doing with the bulletproof coffee and having a little meal at night. Right.
Wow.
And I had to go home. 2 days in, I had to go home because I couldn't listen to them. I
Oh,
was
wow.
like, if I listen to you guys, there's no chance I will ever make 155 pounds. And I was 180 pounds. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
went down, I listened to their diet for 2 days, and I was 186 in 2 days. I put on 6 pounds And then Sean Shelby called me, and Sean Shelby said, hey, they're telling me that you and Drew Dober should definitely not be fighting at 155 pounds. And
Yeah.
I said, listen, I signed the contract at 155. Like, I'll show up and I'll make the weight. And he said, okay. He's like, that's what Drew Dober said too.
Yeah.
He's like, but I got to find out what's going on. And the truth is, the UFC, they're right? They're trying to make
Yeah.
strong, powerful athletes. And as a fighter, we should be that. But there's been this trend of cutting weight, being lean, but you want to have that balance and you want to have that athletic frame. And that was a big thing for me too. And like I said, if I'm where you're at, and then I'm in the high school wrestling rooms, teaching these high school wrestlers and these kids. And what I don't want to see happen to the next group of MMA fighters is to have to make these extreme weight cuts. I hope that they can be big, strong, healthy athletes and fight at ways where they feel the best, not where they feel like they're going to compete best at.
Yeah. That's the old. I always equate it back to the old wrestling mentality. Like I always
Yeah,
get
it's your
that.
guys' fault.
Yeah,
You
it,
guys
it
do it
really is. I'm
nuts.
not. I'm not gonna lie, man. We screwed everybody up, and we were like, me showing up, for a tournament and being 16 pounds over and going, I got to make weight in 3 hours. Going, okay, no problem. Wow. And I wouldn't have any. I would have no problem making weight. And but also, and then I would come back and I'd wrestle, and I'd third, fifth at the tournament, depending on what tournament it was. Sometimes seconds. I won a couple here and there. I wasn't a great college wrestler by any means. I was not an outstanding, international wrestler by any means. But I was always kind of in the hunt. And then, but everybody was doing it. Everybody was doing the exact same thing in the U.S. Then we go internationally, and these Russian kids would be like eating some eggs as they're walking up to the scale. I'm like, what the hell is this guy? What the? Because they just showed up and they ate right the whole time, not like us. They never, their diet was controlled. Obviously, it was government work, because back then it was sports school. So the government controlled their diet, the government controlled their studies, the government controlled their weightlifting, the government controlled their practices, and these guys would come in. And the U.S. was the best wrestling team. By far and away, we had the best wrestling team. We always would win. If it wasn't us, it was Iran, or it was Turkey, or it was Cuba. We'd always win. But all these guys were coming in here, and you'd see these guys be able to compete for way longer than we could. Way longer. And they were way older at the Olympics. They were in their 30s, where our guys are in their 20s. I was like, well, why is that? Well, it's because we get so beat up from cutting so much weight. And that's just the reality of it. That's just what we did. That was then. Now, you look at guys like Schneider. Like, this kid is killing everybody internationally and still has a senior year left at Ohio State. You're like, come on, man. It's not fair. He's an Olympic champ. He's a world champ. Come on. He's won all the major tournaments, and he's still wrestling in college. Like, you got to stop, man. And he's going to be one of the reasons why Ohio State's going to be competitive. But they're not cutting weight. They're on a diet. They're training themselves. They're being in the way that now that you are is what they did their whole careers, and that makes it a lot longer. So for you, let's be honest. For you to fight 4 more fights, 2 more years, and be 40 when you walk away from the sport is pretty freaking miraculous. If you think about the weight cuts you've gone through, how long you've been in the sport, you should have been done 5 years ago. Like, your body should have broke down, but it didn't.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing. I went in and I got a physical, and the doctors say, they're like, man, you're probably one of the healthiest guys, and then same thing with the eye things. And I don't know how I've made it this long, staying as healthy as I have, especially the way, not even that, but the way we used to train. I mean, especially at Team Quest, we used to bang in that room 3 times a week, if not more. And, I'm glad the sport's going the way that it's going. I'm glad that I'm going out on pretty much my own terms. Yeah. You know what I mean? With I'm not going out because of injuries and this and that, but I think the sport, as far as the weight cut, has a ways to go to like protect the fighters and the fighters. So my fight with Drew Dober was in California. Yeah. And the commission and everybody, the head of the USADA for UFC, Jeff Nowitzki, every day they were all over me because they knew how big my weight cut was. Yeah. And I walked down there every day and jumped on the scale, and they're like, 17 pounds, Burkman, 15 pounds. I'm like, don't worry. And I looked great. I did fine. But what they didn't necessarily know is how depleted I was all fight week, right? And the fact that I could walk down there straight-faced and be like, what's up, guys? Yeah. And, it's looking back on it, it's just this competitive drive we have that we want to be great. We want to be good. We want to do it the best, and we're going to do whatever it takes to try to get that. And once we're in it, we're in it. There's no looking back going, oh, man, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the difference is I had a 9-week training camp to prepare for that weight cut, right? Mm-hmm. And I did it, but it was shitty, and I didn't perform well because of that. I'm taking this fight on 2 weeks' notice, and I feel better, and I'm happier 2 weeks out taking this fight on short notice than I did fighting at 55 with 9 weeks and cutting that weight. You know what I mean? Yeah. And for me, like I said, I feel like that will also be part of my platform to, I told the California Athletic Commission I'd be more than happy to talk to them about it, the struggles in the weight cut, and to just, be a voice for, more sanctions when it comes to fighters and regulations.
Well, I'm here to tell you they're coming. There's going to be some more improvements done. And it takes some time because it has to get approved, it has to get written, then it has to get voted on, and then it gets put in. It's going to be a little bit. So I'm going to panic and be like, next month there's going to be this whole new rule change. But they're coming. The weight cutting right now is one of the biggest mars in our sport. There's a guy down in Brazil was cutting weight, got heat stroke from cutting weight. I don't know if he's out of the hospital yet or not, but he was in the hospital at least for 4 or 5 days the last I checked for heat stroke. So it was like, And this is a guy cutting weight. He wasn't sitting out in the sun. He wasn't a homeless guy that was, getting hurt due to exposure. This is a guy that was cutting weight to make for an athletic competition as a pro, ends up in the hospital with heat stroke. That the next step after heat stroke is death. So we're that close to someone, in our modern era, people that we know that we deal with are passing away from cutting weight. So yeah, there's a big thing coming along. So it's changing.
Yeah, I mean, when I fought KJ Noons, that was the first time I cut to 55, and Fertitta came up to me after I cut weight, and I was sitting in a corner. He's like, "Hey, Burkman, you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is just the first time I did it." And then I told my dad, I said, "Dad, get me out of here. Let's go." Yeah. So my dad helped me up. We walked out. As soon as we walked out of the MGM, I laid on the grass. I started puking, Oh,
wow.
And then I started going into convulsions. And I told my dad, I said, "I'll be okay. I'll be all right." So I laid there for like 15 minutes. They got me up. He's like, "Do I need to get the doctors?" I'm like, "If you get the doctors, they won't let me fight."
Right.
I said, "Just chill out." And then so we went back to the room. I had some coconut water. I got in my bed, and I was just shaking, man, shivering. Yeah. And my dad's like, "This is not okay." He's like, "I'm going to get somebody." And I said, "Give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, they gave me this powder, this carb powder. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, but that did the trick. Yeah. I came out of it. We went to dinner. And I just look back at that too, man. And I'm like, I was so close to who knows what. But it was bad. It was really bad. And I went in, I won the fight, but you could see me in the third round, man. I was.
Now understand what you just said. You're an intelligent fighter. You're right. A guy that's been in the sport for a long time. You do a lot of analysis on your fights. You do a lot of looking at your fights. Yeah. You went down a really deep rabbit hole with KJ Noons. You win the fight, and then you come back and do it again. As opposed to going, this is the one time I'm going to do this. I'm going to go up now, and I'm just going to be done with this. You went, no, I'll do it again.
Yeah, and then too, I was like, okay, but then I became a smaller human being.
Yeah,
right? True. Then I because I was cutting all the way from 95 with KJ Noons, where I started camp. The next camp, I started camp at 180 or 185. So it was a big difference from where I started, and I was like, oh, now I got it. Now we're ready for it. And the cut was so much easier. And I went in and I had a really good, I felt better against Paul Felder, but still just different, and to where, I thought the last two, I again, as a fighter, I just think I'm getting better at it. The weight cut's going to get better. But when I looking back now, I'm like, okay, I might have been doing, like taking the advice and putting certain things, but like, I wasn't making myself bigger and stronger. I wasn't making myself a better athlete.
Right.
I was depriving myself. You know what I mean? And I was getting skinny. And even now, I have a harder time even at welterweight. I'm not as big as I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but I just feel like, man, being smaller and competing against smaller guys isn't the answer, right? It's where do you feel the best? Where do you feel the strongest? Compete there.
Yeah.
And then. So lots of lessons learned for me, and they're not always, and I think for you too, you were a generation a little bit before me, and I was the generation, and there was, just trying to figure it out. And listen, Frank, I don't even know how I'm still here. I just, I laugh, but I know that I've worked my ass off. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've had almost 50 fights. I'm grateful that I still get to do it and that I get to go out and compete in a week, one more time in the UFC. And I don't know what the future holds. I'm not a person that needs to know what the future holds. I just know that I get to go throw down one more time in the octagon, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful it's a welterweight.
That's awesome. Josh, thanks so much for coming on here. I really appreciate it, man. It's great to see you back. I'm glad that we also know when the line is. We know we've got to watch it 4 more times, and then and then you're calling the retirement, and that's good because then we know okay, we got to be stuck on each one of these fights because
right. I got 4 more, and I feel like I'm also one of the last of a generation, right? Like from the Ultimate Fighter 1, the Ultimate Fighter 2, that early group of me, Chris Lieben, all those guys that were Team Quest. I look back, and I've watched, guys pass away. Our coach at one point, Robert Follis, is dead now. And it really, it gives me a lot of gratitude that I am where I am in my life, that the sport has given me what it's given me. And like I said, I think from the Ultimate Fighter 1 and 2, it's just me and Diego Sanchez, maybe Rashad Evans.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I got a good life, I got good kids. The sport has given me a lot of good things, and like I said, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna throw down on next Sunday night.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see it, Josh. Thanks so much for coming on here, man. We'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks, Frank. See you later, man.